The ultimate predators of the savanna are now challenging the giant animals. Army of Darkness. What are they planning? Can a single confrontation decide a winner? Night on the savanna is not an empty void. It is when the true army that controls this land go on the brutal hunts. A young elephant, cut off from its herd in the dark. The nighttime savanna is the world of the army of darkness. A siege stretching across many hours. No other species on this savanna would dare attempt it. This is a hunt carried out in darkness, brought to a close with extraordinary precision. This is the species that understands the savanna most deeply, and most people still fail to realize it. The hyena has long worn a label: beggar, opportunist, a creature living off the scraps of the strong. That label is entirely wrong. "95% of this species' food they catch themselves. Not from chance carcasses. Not from what the lion leaves behind. From sieges built on assigned roles and tactics. Organized better than nearly any other predator on this land. Science confirmed this long ago, but the story told to the outside world has never changed. 25 minutes. That is all the time a hyena clan needs to consume an entire zebra. Nothing left at all. This species' digestive system can break down even keratin, the substance forming hooves and horns. No other predator on this continent can do that. This species does not survive by defeating the stronger. They survive by never spending more than they can recover. That is survival economics at its highest level. And it favors the hyena above all else. They can expand your empire, while others look the other way. It is the story of how true power is built, from the darkness, in silence, with system. Her name is Nala, and the first question she asks each morning is this: who is on the board today? Hyenas have been here for more than 10 million years. The lion? Around 1.8 million. The cheetah? Less than 1 million. Hyenas are the ones who shaped the savanna, the animals every later species had to adapt to. Most predators control territory by a simple logic. Claim a patch, hold it, defend it. The hyena does not work this way. Nala's clan ranges across more than 1,600 square kilometers. No single member could control all of it alone. And so, they do not try. They split apart, converging when needed. Science calls this a fission-fusion society. The hyena is the only non-primate that does this, at a large and stable scale. They divide labor at the most refined level. Within a clan of 20 to 30 individuals, each small group gathers information from its own zone. Where the food is, what the enemy is doing, which boundaries are shifting. When one group needs support, they call. When the information is enough, they converge. That system is so effective that not a single corner of 1,600 square kilometers goes unwatched. Nala runs a distributed intelligence network. At dawn, she goes to observe. Wild dogs have a hunting success rate of nearly 80%. Higher than the lion, higher than the cheetah. They chase prey at 48 kilometers per hour, across more than 5 kilometers. Nothing in their hunting machinery is wasted. Each pack member knows its role. Performs it, needs no command. But Nala is observing something else. Not the wild dog's hunting technique. She is watching the boundary. The pack is powerful within its own territory. But there is an invisible limit. They will not cross. A boundary they set for themselves and obey. Roughly 200 meters. Nala notes it. Every confrontation is information. Every response from a rival is a map of their limits. And a rival's limit is precisely Nala's free space. To the north, the leader of that pride is Cargo, a lioness who has endured many harsh seasons, weathered and not easily broken. Cargo's territory once held a resident male. A hyena reads the state of a lion pride, not only by sight, but by sound. The roar of an adult male differs from a female's in frequency, in depth, in how the sound rolls across the earth. And Nala does not hear an adult male's voice from the north. Cargo's pride is defending its territory without a male. What does that mean? It means every external threat must be handled by the females. Cargo is carrying a burden she cannot bear forever. A structural weakness, and this weakness does not need a stronger rival to exploit it, only a more patient one. It is not yet time to act. Nala knows the right opportunity at the right moment matters more than the right direction. Not everyone in the clan understands this. She is Nala's daughter, the one who will inherit this clan, inherit this territory, inherit everything Nala has built. She is faster, more ready. Not patient enough yet, Sadie. Some lessons cannot be taught with words, and Sadie has not yet waited enough times. Nala will not let anyone force her to move too soon, not even her own daughter. A fission-fusion society is a way of dividing awareness. Each individual in Nala's clan is learning different things from different corners of the territory. When they converge, the information converges with them. No single hyena in the clan needs to know everything. They only need to know their part and to know when to call for support. When one individual is lost, the network keeps working. When one zone grows scarce, the clan disperses elsewhere without losing overall stability. The lion, losing the adult male means losing the center of control. The wild dog, losing the alpha means losing the entire hunting structure for weeks. hyena. Lose any single individual and the system rebalances within days. Nala is not irreplaceable. She's simply the hardest to replace right now. Sadie does not yet understand this. She sees power as the ability to make instant decisions. This is not the first time Nala has carried out this morning's survey. The moment has not arrived, but it is approaching. Every morning before the clan begins to move, Nala observes in a systematic way. North first, because that is where Kego's pride operates. West second, because that is where the wild dogs begin their early hunt. South, to check the water sources. East, to see what moved during the night. 4 directions, 4 kinds of information every morning, never skipped. The night before, 22 of the clan were active to the east. They were carrying out the hardest hunt this species has ever attempted, one even the lion would not dare consider. From knowing exactly which way prey flees when panicked, from knowing where the defending herd's blind spots lie, from knowing which night is the right night. Every great hunt is the result of hundreds of mornings of silent observation like this. Every ecosystem runs on a set of unwritten rules. Who hunts where? Who yields to whom? Those rules are never written down, yet every species knows them. They are etched into collective memory through thousands of confrontations, thousands of trials and errors. Nala wants to test them again. Wild dogs lose between 30 and 85% of the food they catch, mostly to hyenas. That pressure has shaped their responses, forming defensive habits. Thresholds of tolerance, boundaries they hold, and boundaries they release. Nala needs to know precisely which boundary is which. The first approach only told her from which direction the pack defends. The second will tell her how far they defend. She watches the pack move to see whether they will redeploy to block both directions. They do not. The conclusion from 2 approaches. The wild dogs defend strongly but rigidly. They respond to threats they can see, not to potential threats. Their pursuit boundary is roughly 200 meters from the food's location. They will not leave that threshold because doing so would abandon the food. That rivals would seize at once. When your system is predictable, you have created a weakness out of your own strength. That information is valuable, not for today, but for the northern campaign Nala is building in her mind. Every piece of data about a rival's limits is another brick. Nala is building something far larger than a single raid on food. And the Western board has just given her the final piece she needed. The North. That is the true target. But before Nala concludes anything, she will test it once more. Nala needs a law, not a hint. Does the pack's response change when facing greater numbers? The result, no meaningful change. That is crucial information. The boundary does not depend on the number of rivals in front of them. That structure is not flexible to the situation, and that makes it predictable. There is something strange about the relationship between hyena and wild dog. They compete with one another, but they also need one another. A wild dog pack with no real hyena competition actually becomes less efficient. Without external pressure, they have no need to optimize. Competitive pressure is an evolutionary force. Without a rival strong enough, you never develop to the limit of your potential. Wild dogs are this skilled because the hyena forces them to be. And the reverse is also true. This creates a paradox few consider. Nala does not want to destroy the Western wild dog pack. She wants to control the pressure she applies to them enough that they yield key space, but not enough to make them collapse entirely. She is trying to redesign her own position on the region's map of power, and now she can move to the next phase. The North, Kago's pride. Where the true economic vacuum is opening. What is striking is not that the hyena takes the wild dog's food. What is striking is the proportion, 85%. That means nearly 9 in 10 wild dog hunts end with something taken before they finish eating. That pressure shapes how they operate. The wild dog's behavior in this region is shaped by the presence of hyenas and the reverse is true. Two species are shaping each other through every interaction. Nala regards it as a tool. Where is the Western wild dog pack in its cycle of adaptation? It is most effective when the subject does not know it is being watched. And wild dogs do not track what is tracking them. Nala uses that blind spot as a window. Here is what few say about kleptoparasitism, the act of stealing another species' food. It demands more precise information than hunting from scratch. When you hunt yourself, you control the process. When you take another species' food, you must know where that species is, how many individuals, what its defensive response is, and whether the energy gained outweighs the risk. All of it must be judged correctly before acting. The hyena does this constantly, with a precision no other species in this ecosystem achieves. Not every conquest begins with an attack. Sometimes they begin with a question: is this area being used to its full extent? The Northern Territory is Kago's territory, but Kago's territory is a shifting concept. With no resident male, Kago's pride is bearing double the cost of defense, with half the resources. Every external threat is solved by the females. There is no one to stand guard when the females must hunt. The territory is too vast for so thin a defensive line. The lion system is built on a division of labor. The male defends the outer boundary, the females hunt and raise the young. When one half of that equation vanishes, the other half must carry it all. Nala's clan begins to extend its patrols northward. Merely a presence, constant. Nala does not need to win any single confrontation. She only needs to sustain the pressure long enough for Kego's system to break on its own. And Kego's system has begun to break, not from the outside, from within. Kego yields the western frontier. She loses the problem of resource allocation. She cannot defend everything at once, and she is wise enough to know which to keep. The western frontier matters less than the central zone, where the cubs are growing. She chooses the one that matters more. Nala expands her field of observation. Her clan begins to hunt in new lands. The distributed intelligence network grows by tens of square kilometers. Kego cannot see that from where she stands. She sees land lost. But what truly changed is not the boundary line on the ground. But there is a variable neither Nala nor Kego has yet accounted for. His name is Tau. And when he returns, everything will change in ways no one could predict. Kego is not weak. She is an experienced lioness who has survived many harsh seasons, who has held territory through stretches when other prides collapsed. When the hyena appears at the edge of the hunt more often, Kego must decide, defend or eat faster. When they draw closer, she must decide, fight or yield. Every decision costs energy. Every decision takes a small piece from the energy reserve Kego needs to hold a vast territory with a dwindling number of females. Over the following weeks, Nala's clan begins to appear near Kego's territory more often. Kego hears that message. Tau hears it too. The northern vacuum is opening. Kego reacts when Tau returns. The pride rejoices, the structure seemingly restored. Nala reassesses the board after Tau appears and adjusts her strategy according to what truly changed, not what merely seemed to change. Nala never has a detailed plan for each step. No fixed schedule, no timeline. Nala trusts the process. She believes that if you do the small things right, the large result will arrive on its own. not because you force it to come, but because you have created the conditions in which that result is the inevitable consequence. There is a law in every complex system. The point of failure rarely comes from the outside first. It comes from within. Tao returns, the male lion of the marshland carrying all the power, that his absence stripped from Keigo's pride. Keigo's system can be restored, or at least that is what emotion says. Tao does not return out of loyalty. He returns because this is his territory. This is one of the most fully documented behaviors in lions. A returning adult male will drive out the young males in the pride. A young male of age is a potential rival, and a potential rival is not allowed to stay. Keigo's pride drops from 8 to 3 females, not from an attack from the outside, because of Tao himself. Because the return the whole pride awaited carried a price no one foresaw. Keigo's equation has changed entirely. Before, no male, a pride of 8, a vast but shrinking territory. Now, a male, but a pride of only 3, the territory still vast, and even fewer resources to hold it. Tao solved one problem and created 3 others. Cargo is forced to adapt. No longer enough members to form an effective hunting line. No longer enough strength to protect the meal site before the hyena takes it. And for the first time in her hunting life, Keigo approaches a leopard's prize. The leopard caches food in a tree for a very specific reason, to avoid losing it to the hyena. But once the leopard has come down to eat, that prize becomes vulnerable. The leopard yields. A lone leopard cannot defend a meal against a lioness, and the risk of injury is not worth that one's. And then Nala's clan arrives. This is a moment few could predict while witnessing it. The the leopard loses the prize to the lion because the cost of defending it is too high. The lion loses the meal to the hyena because Kego's pride is no longer large enough to stand firm. Against a hyena clan controlling this region ever more deeply. Every species adapts to its circumstances. Kego's system is being tested, but that trial is not over. Kego is still there, still holds territory, still has Tao. The dry season is coming. That changes everything. It brings into sharp focus the conflicts that already existed. Prey crowds around the remaining water sources. The predators crowd in after them. Territorial boundaries, already fragile, grow tighter. Kego's pride now numbers only 3 females and Tao. 3 females and 1 male, the bare minimum to sustain a lion pride's basic operation. But the minimum to survive and enough to defend are 2 entirely different thresholds. A pride of 4 lions is enough to hunt average prey, but not enough to hunt, protect the hunt site, patrol the boundary, and raise cubs all at once during the season of scarcity. Kego's daily routine becomes a punishing problem of resource allocation. Every decision is a trade-off. Tao does what an adult male lion does. Those behaviors are sensible in a pride large enough to divide its labor. In a pride of 4, under the pressure of drought, they are a burden. Not because Tao is selfish, but because his biology has no program to adapt to a small pride under pressure. He operates on the default setting of his kind, and that default was not designed for this situation. Kego adapts because she has no choice. And her adaptation, having to change how she hunts, having to yield more meals to the hyena, having to draw in the boundary, is the answer to a survival problem for the whole pride. A male lion is not built to stay in one place. He's built to move, to compete, and to conquer. His nervous system is optimized for the short term. Detect a threat, react, move on, not for the long term. That is why the females are the pride's true stable element. The males come and go. The females stay. The females pass territorial knowledge from one generation to the next. Tao does not carry that memory when he returns. He carries strength, but does not know when to restrain it. Drought does not bring an end through intense heat. It claims existence by forcing a retreat into isolation. Now, there is no other choice. Territories that seemed separate in normal times suddenly overlap. Herds that would never meet in a single day now drink at the same hole. This is not peace. This is tension compressed under pressure. And compressed tension held long enough always finds a way out. The African elephant controls the main water hole. No species, whether lion or hyena, directly challenges a herd of adult elephants at the waterhole. So they all wait. And when the elephants finish drinking, they all pour in at the same time, in the same place, with all the accumulated tension of the dry season ready to erupt. The wild dog pack is south of the waterhole. They have pups this season. Pups are what changes everything in the pack's behavior. When wild dogs have pups, the entire pack shifts into absolute defensive mode. No predator on this savanna. Has a defense of its young as fierce as that. When the pups are threatened, the entire pack reacts as one unit. No calculation, no retreat, no yielding. Sedi knows this, or at least she learned the principle. From the times Nala took her to observe, from what Nala had seen and known about the wild dog's limits. Wild dogs have a 200-meter pursuit limit. Wild dogs defend along visible directions. Wild dogs have a blind spot. Sedi memorized those things, but Sedi did not memorize one thing. Those rules were all observed by Nala under normal conditions. Not under conditions with pups, not under conditions of drought when every tension is amplified. Sedi approaches, confident, because she has done this before, because she remembers what her mother saw. The wild dog pack reacts instantly and completely, no warning, no cautious first step. The whole pack, even those that normally hold the outer line, pours in. Sadie has no time to process that this is not the situation she prepared for. Nala hears it from afar, not the usual alarm call. Then a short silence, then footsteps toward the clan, slow, heavy, out of rhythm. The clan knows before they see. Her daughter is limping home. Not Sadie's fault, not Nala's fault. Nala taught Sadie the tactics, but no one can teach every exception to those tactics before they happen. Not patient enough yet, Sadie. That phrase now carries a different meaning. Not wait a little longer. There are situations when even patience is not enough, where one must recognize when stepping into the territory of the unknown. Sadie has just stepped into that territory and stepped out by injury. Nala looks to the north. The clan is still waiting for her. The dry season is still going on. The plan is still there. Sadie did not ask permission. That is the first thing Nala realizes when she hears the call from the waterhole. Not Sadie is injured, but Sadie decided without asking. Sadie saw an opportunity. The wild dogs feeding, the drought applying pressure, the 200-meter limit still in her mind. Where did she go wrong? She did not check whether what she had learned still applied. Correct information in the wrong context is still wrong information. Wild dogs with pups do not operate by the 200-meter limit. They do not operate by the blind spot Nala observed under normal conditions. With pups, the entire defensive structure changes, and no one can teach that exception in advance, when no one has faced it before. That is the kind of lesson learned only by encountering it. Better to survive it after the encounter. Sadie brings home a costly lesson. Not every opportunity you see is ready to be taken. Timing is the most important variable. It can only be felt through experience. Nala does not scold Sadie. Nala's answer is silence and to keep observing. Patience is the continuous accumulation of information while holding your position. It is knowing that the situation is shifting in your favor, and that the only thing to do is not to ruin that process with haste. The dry season will pass. The prey will return. Kego's pride will keep weakening, not from being attacked, but because their system is carrying far more than it can sustain forever. When that happens, no attack is needed. For the first time, she looks the way Nala looks and begins to see what her eyes once overlooked. But there is something Sedi learns from that failure that she could not learn from success. When you win, you learn that your approach works. But you do not learn why it works or whether it would work under other conditions. When you fail, you learn something more precise. Which conditions made your approach fail? CD did not merely lose one confrontation. She gained a map of when not to act, and that map is worth more than any victory. Under the wrong conditions. The generations of hyenas before Sedi learned that map through many generations of failure. She needed to learn it in a single season. That is the privilege of having a mother who learned it first. And perhaps that is the most important thing. Sedi learned from this dry season. Knowing that difference is not innate. It is a skill learned through experience. Through the times of being wrong, the times of waiting, the times of watching long enough to see the consequence of a hasty decision. Nala learned it from her own mistakes in seasons before Sedi was born. Now it is Sedi's turn. Opportunity does not announce itself. It simply appears and vanishes. If you do not look in the right place at the right time. Tao leaves, heading south. He leaves for reasons of his own. The vast range of a male lion is never tied to a fixed point. He will return, but when he returns, that is something only Tao knows. Nala knows Tao has gone, not because she sees him. She hears it. The sky also tells her. That direction is the direction Tao moved. Rona stays, the lioness of the marshland, brave, resolute, defending the territory with what she has. but what she has is not enough for what is coming. Nala's clan assembles. Each small group is summoned back. The fission-fusion system working in reverse. From dispersal to convergence. This is a military deployment. Each individual knows where it stands in the formation. No one needs to be directed. Rona is no coward, because this is her pride's territory, and she has defended it through harsher seasons than this. But the hyena clan is more numerous, better coordinated, and offers no weakness Rona can exploit while standing alone. The hyena is one of the few species a lion regularly retreats from. A male lion can hold his ground against 15 hyenas. A lioness alone cannot. Nala's clan moves into the marshland territory, patrolling, marking, checking every corner. This is not how a conqueror seizes territory. This is how a system expands its borders. This is the result of a plan. Who is on this board? Nala has known the answer from the start. She knows the wild dog is powerful, but has a clear limit. She knows cargo is carrying a system that is slowly breaking. She knows Tao will at times be absent. She knows Rona cannot stand alone. Not because she has information the others lack, but because she gathered that information, while the others only reacted to what was happening in front of them. An empire is not built in a single battle. It is built from thousands of small decisions no one sees as important, until they have created something undeniable. That is power. That is what Nala understood before this story began. But she wins not only because she is intelligent, and to understand why, we must step out of the drama and into the science. The change does not come from one great attack. It never does. It comes from a series of small shifts. That is how true power is transferred. Not through a single decisive moment. Through hundreds of small moments no one notices. Until the result can no longer be changed. Kago's pride withdraws gradually to the east. The western boundary of their territory has become too costly to defend. Each week, Nala's clan appears a little closer. After enough time, Kago makes a decision. Cut the positions not worth the investment and defend what remains. But from Nala's point of view, this is what she had been waiting for. And Sedi, this time, understands. She has watched long enough to see that process unfold. She has seen small pressure accumulate into great change. She has seen that patience is not weakness, but the most refined weapon of a system, operating at the speed of the long term. The vacuum Kago's pride leaves behind does not stay empty for long. The hyena fills it, without noise, without drama. Silently, systematically, irreversibly. The question Nala asks each morning has not changed. Who is on this board, and who is changing? Once again, the most important thing is not that Nala wins. The most important thing is that Sedi sees how her mother wins. For to inherit power without inheriting the method that creates power, that is where most systems collapse. Human dynasties fall not because the air is bad, but because the heir does not understand why the system works, only sees its result. Sedi nearly made that mistake. A single dry season, a costly lesson, and enough time to sit beside Nala and watch without acting changed that. To inherit is not only to receive territory, to inherit is to receive the method. Before explaining the behaviors of these apex predators, let's look at the big picture across the arid savanna. During the dry season, the savanna shrinks around the few remaining waterholes. Daytime temperatures soar beyond 35 degrees Celsius. A giraffe lowers its nearly 2-meter-long neck to drink, slowly, yet always on alert. The Nile crocodile lies still for hours, waiting for a single misstep. The hippopotamus defends its territory with wide-open jaws, revealing a bite force of over 17,000 newtons. Above, the African fish eagle circles and dives the moment it spots the shadow of a fish. The spotted hyena waits patiently, ready to close in on any lone or weary wanderer. Every creature comes here with a plan of its own. These waterholes are the fine line between survival and loss, setting the rhythm of life across the savanna. Imagine you're driving through the vast grasslands of the savanna, where the dry season sun scorches the earth and every blade of grass trembles, seemingly on the verge of wilting. In the midst of that endless stretch, a waterhole suddenly appears. Here, a dazzling gathering unfolds. Elephants, zebras, giraffes, impalas, and even nighttime wanderers, like the black rhinoceros, converge, creating a vivid dance of life in the heart of a harsh wilderness. Waterholes in the savanna can form naturally or be created by human intervention. Natural waterholes develop in low-lying geological depressions or along dry riverbeds, where rainwater or underground springs have a chance to collect and remain. At times, they are also shaped by elephants themselves. Using their remarkable strength, they often dig into the soil in search of minerals. Over the years, these small pits can grow into lasting water sources, giving rise to miniature ecosystems that support the survival of many different species. In addition to these natural basins, national parks and major wildlife reserves across Africa have proactively constructed hundreds of artificial waterholes to help ensure that animals don't have to travel too far during the intense dry season. At Kruger National Park in South Africa, by the 1980s, around 300 borehole-fed waterholes and 50 reservoirs had been developed. The goal was to support rare antelope species and help manage the movement of large animals like buffalo and giraffe across the region. Meanwhile, in Etosha National Park in Namibia, spanning roughly 22,270 square kilometers, the landscape is dominated by the dry salt pan of Etosha, which alone covers more than 23% of the park. Here, the waterhole system is more evenly balanced between natural and artificial sources. In eastern Etosha, there are as many as 29 natural waterholes, while the drier western region has only 5, compensated by the installation of over 27 artificial waterholes to help maintain ecological balance. Some of Etosha's most iconic waterholes, like Okakwejo, Gemsbokvlakte, and Halali, have become not only gathering points for wildlife, but also destinations for visitors from around the world. These sites are often illuminated at night, offering people the rare chance to witness the quiet, magical moments when animals emerge from the darkness to drink under the stars. As the first light breaks, between around 5:30 and 7 in the morning, the African savanna enters one of its rare, cool moments of the day. During the dry season, temperatures in regions like the Serengeti or the Okavango typically range from 14 to 20 degrees Celsius at this time. The air is still, the ground has yet to warm, and the water at the holes remains crystal clear, undisturbed and untouched. This is the signature hour for the appearance of small, cautious herbivores. They arrive early to take advantage of the quiet, when predators have not yet begun to stir. These individuals tend to be extremely alert. They don't linger, taking just a few quick sips before slipping back into the brush. Every movement is measured with nothing wasted. Unlike larger antelope species that tend to approach cautiously, guinea fowl arrive with their signature bustle and energy. Each flock typically consists of 10 to 25 individuals, moving together as a tightly knit social unit. They constantly call out, loud, rhythmic sounds that help maintain contact and serve as early warnings for danger. This noisy presence can even benefit grazing species like impalas or wildebeests by alerting them early to the presence of predators. The guinea fowl's alarm calls can travel as far as 150 meters in open terrain, far enough to trigger defensive reactions in other nearby species, even those outside their own group. Although they have wings and can make short flights, guinea fowl typically prefer to run when escaping threats, a strategic decision that conserves energy and takes full advantage of the open savanna. They can sprint at speeds of up to 35 kilometers per hour, and their ability to change direction rapidly often makes it difficult for predators to keep up. Their nervous systems are especially developed in the visual processing regions, allowing them to detect motion from a distance and react quickly to danger. Their diet also plays an important ecological role in the savanna landscape. Primarily feeding on seeds, bulbs, and insects, guinea fowl are also capable of catching small reptiles like lizards or young snakes when the opportunity arises. The muddy fringes around waterholes are ideal for foraging, especially in the dry season when insects are drawn to moisture-rich zones. By focusing their foraging on the edges of the water, guinea fowl minimize the risk of getting too close to the water's edge, where ambush predators may lie in wait. Spread across South Africa, Botswana, Namibia, Zimbabwe, and Angola, guinea fowl are among the most numerous native bird species on the continent. It's estimated that there are between 28 and 30 million individuals in the wild. Most live outside protected areas and have adapted well to semi-arid zones, open grasslands, and farmlands. When the dry season begins, guinea fowl tend to cluster around permanent waterholes, then disperse once the rains return and water becomes more widely available. They play an important role in controlling insect populations, clearing away plant debris, and even creating feeding grounds where smaller bird species like lapwings or sandgrouse can find nourishment. This is the springbok, one of the earliest visitors to the waterhole. They never come alone, always in groups. Sometimes just a few individuals, sometimes dozens. Each one keeps just enough distance to avoid being trapped if trouble arises, but close enough to share signals through a glance, a shift in posture, or even the tiniest startle. Each time they lower their heads to drink, it lasts only a few seconds, then back up. Ears upright, muscles tight. At the slightest disturbance, the whole group springs into motion, gone in a flash like a gust of wind. When agitated or excited, springbok leap high into the air, 2 to 3 meters, with their backs arched and the white patch of fur along their spine standing tall. Pronking is a message. To a predator, it says, "I see you." To fellow springbok, it's a way to signal emotion, send warnings, or attract attention. It's a movement that is both social and biological. Beyond that, every behavior is measured, carefully calculated, and controlled. Footage from camera systems shows that they spend only brief moments at the waterhole, unlike species such as zebras that linger longer. This short window of exposure significantly lowers the risk of being ambushed, reflecting not just physical evolution, but also a refined intelligence in how they move through the world. At midday on the African savanna, When the sun scorches the earth and the shade of a tree becomes a precious refuge, giraffes begin their slow approach to the waterhole. Unlike many other grazers that tend to move during the early morning or late afternoon to avoid the heat and potential threats, giraffes primarily drink from noon into the late afternoon, a time when the dry plains settle into an eerie calm. It's a strategic choice. Predators are less likely to be lurking near waterholes during the midday hours, as lions, leopards, and hyenas usually retreat into the shade to rest. With their towering height, giraffes can spot danger from afar. But in the vulnerable posture of drinking, when their whole frame must bow and their balance is compromised, they become momentarily exposed. They don't keep their heads down for long. Each sip lasts only a few seconds, quick, deliberate, always followed by a lift of the head to scan the surroundings. Their drinking rhythm is broken and cautious. Lower, raise, listen, then lower again. It's not about needing time to digest water. It's about making sure no predator is silently creeping in from behind the bushes. In larger groups, certain individuals remain upright as temporary lookouts, keeping watch while the rest drink. Height, the most striking trait of the giraffe, is both an advantage and a challenge. Adult males typically stand between 5.0 and 5.5 meters tall, with females slightly shorter at 4.3 to 4.7 meters. They're also quite heavy. Females weigh between 800 and 1,200 kilograms, while males can reach up to 1,900 kilograms. Thanks to their stature, giraffes can browse from treetops that most other herbivores can't reach, especially the thorn-covered acacia leaves, which are rich in nutrients and moisture. To manage these prickly meals, giraffes use their long, dark purple tongues, measuring between 45 and 50 centimeters. They don't undertake long-distance migrations like some larger antelope, but giraffes do move with the seasons, traveling between wet and dry areas in search of greener vegetation and reliable waterholes. GPS data shows that during the dry season, an individual giraffe may travel 30 to 50 kilometers per month in search of food and water. And yet, despite their sheer size, giraffes have a surprisingly gentle ecological footprint. They don't stir up the dust and water like large herds of elephants, nor do they create the chaos seen with buffalo or zebras. Their presence at a waterhole is like a stretched shadow beneath the midday sun. Quiet, composed, and respectfully distant, never disturbing the delicate order of the dryland rhythm. They avoid waterholes with steep banks, deep pools, or obstructed views. Instead, they favor gentle slopes, clear water, firm ground, and wide visibility, places where their eyes can scan far and wide before lowering themselves into a vulnerable posture. Because threats don't only come from behind or the sides. Beneath the still surface, where the mud remains undisturbed, sometimes hides a less expected predator, Nile crocodiles lying perfectly motionless. There have been recorded cases of crocodiles lunging at giraffes from below while they're in that vulnerable bowed posture, but few succeed. These towering animals are careful and deliberate in choosing where they drink. So, are you the kind of person who takes a quick sip and scans the room, or do you drink slowly like nothing could ever catch you off guard? As night falls and the air cools gently, the African savanna slips into its hidden rhythm of the dark. In the shadows, predators like lions, leopards, and spotted hyenas begin to move toward the waterholes. However, ecological field data reveals that rather than coming to drink, predators tend to stay active around these areas for hunting, and often avoid the water's edge themselves to reduce the risk of being spotted. A study conducted in Hwange National Park, Zimbabwe, found that large herbivores such as buffalo, giraffes, and kudu tend to steer clear of waterholes when lions are nearby, especially at night. These species adjust the timing of their visits to minimize the chance of a deadly encounter. As darkness blankets the savanna and the waterholes reflect only the faint glow of the moon, lions begin to move in silence. They don't walk straight to the water's edge, but instead wait patiently, hidden behind tall grass or dry earth mounds, using the wind and shadows to mask their presence. Lions are the only big cats that live and hunt in social groups, known as prides. This structure allows them to take down prey, weighing hundreds of kilograms, wildebeests, zebras, even African buffalo. When the chance arises, they'll even charge a rhino. In the center of a drying waterhole, a black rhino is stuck in thick mud. It thrashes, sweeping its twin horns from side to side, but each movement only pulls the heavy mud tighter around its legs. From a distance, 3 golden figures approach, lionesses, the pride's seasoned hunters. In lion society, around 85 to 90% of all hunts are carried out by females. Their bodies are built for short bursts of explosive power, capable of sprinting up to 80 kilometers per hour, though only for a few seconds. The rhino lets out a deep, rasping roar that echoes through the hollow. Black rhinos can weigh between 1,000 and 1,400 kilograms, but right now, the mud has turned it into a prisoner. One lioness lunges, biting at the rhino's flank. Its skin, nearly 5 centimeters thick, is too tough for the lion's teeth to pierce. With an enormous burst of strength from its hindquarters, the rhino breaks free and charges the nearest lioness. This failure is the exception. Lions typically hunt antelope and other grazers that approach the waterhole to drink. When hunting near a waterhole, 1 or 2 experienced lionesses quietly circle behind the herd, driving them toward an ambush. The rest lie low, pressed to the ground, waiting for the signal, then launch forward when the prey is just tens of meters away. Their golden coats blend seamlessly with the earth, each step taken softly as they close in on their prey. A single swipe or pounce is often enough to bring down the target. After a successful hunt, the male lion typically eats first, while also guarding the pride from scavengers like the spotted hyena. Another key role of the male is patrolling and defending the territory, especially the permanent waterholes that are vital to the pride's survival during the dry season. A lion's diet reflects its status at the top of the food chain. They prefer large mammals like wildebeest, zebra, African buffalo, and warthog, but also take opportunities to hunt young giraffes or weakened animals. What remains after their feast becomes nourishment for scavengers like vultures, helping to recycle nutrients back into the ecosystem. Unlike lions that hunt in prides or cheetahs that rely on speed, the leopard takes a different approach. Moving silently through tall grass at the edges of waterholes, where moonlight and shadow weave a perfect veil for a sudden strike. After resting and taking a quiet drink at the now cool waterhole, the leopard begins its hunt. It climbs into nearby trees. The leopard may not be the fastest runner, but it is a master climber. With razor-sharp, retractable claws, it grips tree bark like a seasoned mountaineer. Its powerful shoulder and forelimb muscles allow it to leap as far as 6 meters in a single bound. Its golden yellow eyes reflect the moonlight, thanks to a layer of reflective tissue in the retina called the tapetum lucidum, enhancing its vision in low light conditions far beyond what humans can see. The monkeys are awake, but their daylight-adapted eyes can't locate the predator. A rustle, then silence. Panic spreads through the troop, but it's too late. The hunter has carried its midnight meal down from the branches and slipped away. Unlike many predators, leopards don't frequent waterholes to drink. They know these are risky places, where the scent of their body or the slightest motion could unravel the entire plan. But as ambush predators, they turn these very places into natural traps. Waterholes draw impalas, bushbucks, and warthogs, all bound to come when thirst sets in. And all it takes is a single misstep, a moment of distraction for the prey to fall into the claws of one of the stealthiest hunters in the feline world. The leopard's body is built for agility and surprise. Though smaller than lions or tigers, an adult male can weigh between 30 and 65 kilograms, with muscular strength concentrated in the forequarters. Its light golden brown coat is covered in irregular rosette patterns, making it nearly invisible in its surroundings. In the twilight glow, this camouflage becomes a perfect shield, allowing it to vanish among shrubs, tree trunks, or rock outcrops by the water. A leopard's stealth isn't simply about silence, it's about extreme patience. At times, it may move only a few steps over several minutes, eyes locked on its target, ears alert to the slightest sound. Every obstacle, every breeze, every movement among the animals at the waterhole is carefully assessed. And when the distance is close enough, often just a few meters, it launches forward at speeds of up to 60 kilometers per hour, delivering a powerful pounce and a fatal bite to the throat or the back of the neck. What sets the leopard apart is its ability to hoist prey into trees. After a successful hunt, it uses tremendous strength to drag the kill, sometimes twice its own weight, onto a high, sturdy branch. This behavior protects its meal from lions, spotted hyenas, or African wild dogs, and offers a quiet place to eat without disturbance. It's part of why leopards thrive in so many ecosystems, from dense forests to open grasslands and rocky hills, thanks to their adaptability and resource-guarding behavior. Their diet is nearly limitless. As opportunistic predators, leopards eat everything from insects, rodents, birds, and fish to hoofed animals like antelope, duiker, and reedbuck, even livestock near farms. This dietary flexibility helps them survive in resource-poor areas, such as the fringes of the Kalahari Desert, where they can live off moisture from prey or succulent plants. In South African reserves like Kruger and Sabi Sand, camera traps have recorded leopards hunting both day and night, though their peak activity is around dawn and dusk, when temperatures are mild and light conditions aid in camouflage. Historically, leopards once roamed across much of Africa and a large part of Asia. But as of 2025, they have disappeared from at least 13 countries and are nearing extinction in 7 others. Across Africa, they now inhabit only 25 to 37% of their original range, with the highest populations in Tanzania, Namibia, Botswana, and South Africa. Tanzania holds the largest number, with between 5,000 and 10,000 individuals found in regions like the Serengeti and Ngorongoro. One of the most notable roles leopards play is ecological. As mid-level predators in the food chain, they help control populations of hoofed animals, contributing to ecosystem balance. Yet they face intense competition themselves. In areas like Sabi Sand, around 22% of leopard deaths are caused by lions, while spotted hyenas steal nearly 50% of their kills. Only when a kill is secured in a tree do the hyenas finally give up. Recent ecological studies have found that vultures often circle at altitudes between 500 and 1,500 meters around waterholes during the dry season. This is when mortality rates among animals rise due to exhaustion, malnutrition, or injuries sustained while competing for water. From above, with vision 3 to 4 times sharper than a human's, they can spot a wildebeest straying from the herd, a collapsed zebra, or even something as subtle as a flurry of feathers and dust. Signs that a hunt is underway. Unlike New World vultures, which rely heavily on smell, African gyp species depend entirely on sight. They also constantly monitor each other. When one vulture descends near a carcass, others within several kilometers instantly pick up on the cue and follow. This effect can attract dozens, or even hundreds of vultures in less than an hour, a common scene whenever predators leave behind scraps of a kill. The vulture's body is a clear product of evolution tailored to scavenging. Their bald heads and necks allow them to reach deep into the chest cavity or abdominal area of carcasses without getting feathers matted or dirty. Their strong, hooked beaks can tear through the thick hide of large animals like African buffalo or giraffes, while their rough tongues strip muscle fibers clean from bone. Long, flexible necks give them access to the most nutrient-rich organs, liver, heart, intestines, packed with protein and minerals. Their immune systems are biological marvels. With stomach acid near a pH of 1, they can neutralize pathogens like anthrax bacteria, botulinum toxin, or rabies viruses. Their gut microbiome is also adapted to break down decaying flesh and deactivate harmful compounds. This allows them to turn what would be a deadly health risk for most creatures into a rich source of energy. In terms of distribution, African gyp species like the white-backed vulture and Ruppel's vulture are widespread across the sub-Saharan region, especially in savannas and large protected areas. Their migratory behavior is far more flexible than many other raptors. They can travel hundreds of kilometers to follow the movements of wildebeests and zebras, or to reach drought-stricken areas, where high death rates provide ample feeding opportunities. GPS tracking has recorded individual Ruppel's vultures covering more than 1,800 kilometers in just 2 weeks, tracing the course of dry rivers in search of food. At the waterhole, competition for food isn't just between different vulture species. It also includes the marabou stork. Both scavenge from predator leftovers, but vultures hold an edge in numbers, tearing power and speed of a rival. Marabou storks, however, excel at reaching scraps submerged in water or clinging to large bones thanks to their long, powerful beaks. Perched motionless on a bare, sun-bleached branch, the African fish eagle locks its brilliant yellow eyes onto the scene below. Farther down the shoreline, a marabou stork has just dragged a hefty fish from the shallows, wings flapping to keep its balance. The sound of splashing water and beating wings becomes a signal too loud to ignore. The eagle leans forward slightly, opens its 2.3-meter wingspan, and dives, wind screaming past as it descends. But it doesn't aim for the fish in the water. It targets the one holding it. A piercing call rips through the air, and the marabou stork freezes, glancing up for a split second. With just a moment of hesitation, the fish slips from the beak and falls onto the muddy ground. In an instant, the African fish eagle folds its wings and dives like an arrow, legs extended, talons lined with coarse spiracules clamping tightly onto the prize. Only its feet touch the water before it springs upward again, carrying off its shimmering silver catch. The African fish eagle is a close relative of the bald eagle of North America. It's found widely across sub-Saharan Africa, from vast lakes like Victoria, Tanganyika, and Malawi to major rivers such as the Nile and Zambezi, and even man-made waterholes within protected reserves. Its movements aren't long-distance migrations, but seasonal shifts driven by food availability. When lakes and rivers recede, many individuals relocate to remaining bodies of water, including reserve waterholes. Satellite tracking in 2024 recorded repeated flights of 150 to 200 kilometers between wetland areas in Botswana and Zimbabwe. In the ecosystem, the African fish eagle plays a dual role. As a top predator of fish and water birds, and as both scavenger and kleptoparasite, making use of meals others have caught. This helps control fish populations and reduces wasted biomass in the environment. At waterholes, its presence alters the behavior of other bird species, creating a zone of fear in the skies, where every move must be calculated to avoid becoming the next target. They often arrive just minutes after vultures begin to gather. The storks descend with a slow but assertive gait, moving straight into the crowd and using their height, up to 1 meter, and long straight bills measuring up to 35 centimeters to claim a prime spot. In many cases, that bill becomes a weapon, used to push back rivals and snatch the choicest pieces of meat. This ability helps them hold their ground amid the fierce competition at feeding sites. Their evolutionary adaptations are clearly reflected in their physical traits. Like many vultures, their heads and necks are nearly bald, sometimes with just a few wispy feathers, minimizing the risk of contamination when reaching deep inside a carcass. Their large, strong, and straight bills act like daggers, capable of slicing through tough muscle tissue and even dispatching small prey. The pink throat pouch, connected to the respiratory system, can inflate and deflate, likely aiding in thermoregulation and social signaling. Their diet reveals just how opportunistic they are. Beyond scavenging carcasses, marabou storks feed on fish, frogs, insects, lizards, hatchlings, eggs, and rodents. They frequently forage in garbage dumps near human settlements, where leftover food becomes a convenient energy source. When competing with vultures, marabous often take advantage of meat near the waterline or deep inside the carcass, places their long bills can reach with ease. Sometimes they wait for vultures to tear open the thick hide before stepping in to claim the softer tissues within, conserving effort and avoiding risk. At the waterhole, their role extends beyond scavenging. Marabou storks keenly observe weak or injured animals, striking with quick jabs to take down smaller water birds. They are also known to hunt fish in shrinking pools as the dry season deepens. But that long bill can be a disadvantage too, making it tricky to grip slippery fish in muddy water. And overhead, another thief has already seen the scene unfold. Though long known as scavengers, modern research reveals that the majority, between 70 and 95%, of a spotted hyena's diet comes from their own hunts. Prey like wildebeests, buffalo calves, and Thompson's gazelles can fall victim even without being injured or weak. While scavenging remains part of their opportunistic survival strategy, active hunting is the true foundation of their success. Unlike big cats such as lions or cheetahs, which rely on bursts of speed and sudden strikes, The spotted hyena is a master of endurance. With large hearts, solid muscle mass, and powerful hind legs, they can pursue prey at 60 kilometers per hour over long distances. The chase isn't a quick sprint. It's a war of attrition, wearing the prey down bit by bit. They take turns leading, never letting the target rest. And when the animal begins to tire, the pack closes in. Some block the front, others hit from the sides, while the rear guard stays locked in pursuit. Once the prey collapses, the feeding frenzy erupts. The entire clan surges forward, loud, chaotic, and ferocious. Within 30 minutes, the carcass of a zebra can be reduced to scattered fragments of bone. But even bones aren't wasted. With a bite force of up to 4,500 newtons, the strongest among land mammals, spotted hyenas easily crush thick, heavy bones. Their teeth and jaws are built not just for tearing flesh, but for consuming what most others leave behind. Near waterholes, where herbivores like zebras, wildebeests, impalas, and kudus are forced to pause for water, hyenas take advantage of the moment to coordinate their hunts. They don't bother hiding in tall grass or underbrush. Instead, they apply pressure as a unit. Under darkness or moonlight, they split into groups, silently stalking or simply trailing their prey, waiting for the right moment to converge. Their coordination is built on sound, high-pitched laughs, short whoops, and guttural growls, tactical vocalizations like coded signals exchanged in the wild. To understand this level of coordination, it's important to know that spotted hyenas don't live alone. They form large clans of up to 80 individuals, led by a dominant female. Their matrilineal hierarchy is complex and tightly structured, resembling the social systems of primates. Large clans have a clear advantage in defending territory, taking down bigger prey, and even confronting other predators like lions or leopards. When they have the numbers, they won't hesitate to attack or steal from anyone. Even lions, because female hyenas are nearly as large as lionesses. Spotted hyenas range in length from 95 to 165 centimeters, stand 70 to 91 centimeters at the shoulder, and weigh between 40 and 180 kilograms, 80 kilograms, with females typically larger and heavier than males. They have an average lifespan of 12 years in the wild and can live up to 25 years if not impacted by hunting or disease. One particularly unique trait is their reproductive and hormonal system. Females possess external genitalia that closely resemble those of males, leading to significant confusion and directly shaping their female-dominated social structure. Migration behavior depends on clan territory. Each clan maintains a clearly defined home range, sometimes spanning several hundred square kilometers, marked through feces, vocalizations, and social interaction. Adult individuals may leave to establish new territories or join other clans, depending on population density and competitive pressure. Their varied diet also plays a key role in their adaptability. Spotted hyenas consume everything from small mammals, birds, and reptiles to insects, and even human waste in settled areas. This flexibility allows them to thrive in a wide range of environments, from savannas and open woodlands to high-altitude regions above 4,000 meters. In water-scarce zones, such as semi-desert areas or near the Kalahari, they may travel dozens of kilometers overnight to reach a waterhole, then wait patiently, study the terrain, and plan ambushes in groups. Ecologically, spotted hyenas help regulate herbivore populations, clean up carcasses, and reduce the spread of disease. Their influence shapes plant structure, impacts grazing behavior, and affects other competing carnivores. In ecosystems where lions rule through strength and leopards through solitary cunning, the spotted hyena thrives through unity, adaptability, and an unmatched ability to make the most of every opportunity. As darkness fades from the still surface of the waterhole, the final sounds of the night begin to quiet. Predators have withdrawn, leaving behind a heavy silence. This is the beginning of a new day, one where the edges of survival grow sharper. The savanna enters its driest stretch of the year, the deep, dry season, where all life is drawn to a single focal point, the waterhole. Under an increasingly harsh sun, the shoreline shrinks inward day by day, leaving behind cracked mud and a mess of overlapping footprints. Small, shallow pools vanish first. During extended droughts, water levels in many smaller holes drop steadily by 2 to 5 centimeters each day. In less than 2 weeks, a shallow basin runs completely dry. The remaining waterholes, deeper, wider, become the final gathering points of the savanna. Every species converges. Whether it's elephants leading their herds across dozens of kilometers or impalas slipping through thickets, all are pulled toward a dwindling source. There's no longer a line between predator and prey, no more choosing a safer time to drink. No more space to keep a safe distance. The waterhole becomes nature's last supper, a place where all are forced to gather, even if only to stand shoulder to shoulder at the edge for a few muddy sips and one fragile chance to make it through another day. The black rhinoceros is not a species particularly tied to any single waterhole. They only seek out water during quieter hours of the day. Each visit may last just a few minutes, long enough to drink their fill, before retreating back to the safety of the surrounding thickets. Under ideal conditions, they can drink up to 35 liters of water per day. But during dry spells, they may go several days without drinking, relying instead on moisture found in the leaves and tender twigs they eat. The soft mud around the edge of the waterhole often bears the imprint of their large, round footprints. There, they wallow, spinning slowly to let the mud coat every inch of their body. This cool, damp layer helps regulate their temperature, and once dried, forms a natural shield that protects against ultraviolet rays, insects, and parasites like ticks. They repeat this behavior at different waterholes, leaving behind patchy rings of dried mud, each one a quiet imprint of their survival. Though largely solitary, the black rhinoceros still leaves invisible messages around the waterhole. They mark the area with dung piles, known as middens, and by spraying streams of urine, signals that convey information about their gender, reproductive status, and territorial boundaries. Each sign is either a word of warning or a subtle invitation to a potential mate. With a strong sense of territory and a temperamental nature, confrontations are often hard to avoid. Encounters between two individuals can escalate into intense battles, with both using their sharp horns to strike. Many of these clashes end with serious injuries and sometimes even greater loss. But in the dry season, access to water can be more valuable than life itself. As the Cape buffalo are often the first to arrive, simply because they're rarely far away. They make their way toward the waterhole across the parched African savanna, their massive dark forms casting heavy shadows on cracked earth. These buffalo are widely distributed across southern and eastern Africa, with the total African buffalo population estimated at around 513,000 individuals. That number continues to decline, a long-standing trend driven by habitat loss, hunting, and climate change. A 2024 genetic study revealed that this species experienced a sharp population bottleneck between 5,000 and 10,000 years ago, likely linked to early human activity and shifting environmental conditions. They've adapted through a strong herd lifestyle. Groups can range from a few dozen to over 1,000 individuals, with a clear social structure and hierarchy reinforced through ritualized, bloodless horn duels. When they approach the waterhole, their first instinct is to drink. They typically come in the early morning or late afternoon to avoid the scorching heat. During dry spells, their movements become more concentrated around the last remaining water sources. In northern Botswana, they roam widely during the rainy season in search of fresh grass, but return to the permanent wetlands of the Okavango Delta when conditions dry out. In Ruaha National Park, Tanzania, the dry season forces them to stay close to the Great Ruaha River, where daily movement averages 6.9 kilometers at the end of the dry season, compared to just 3.6 kilometers during the wet. Mud along the water's edge provides more than just refreshment. Cape buffalo wallow in it to cool down, protect themselves from flies, mosquitoes, and parasites, and help shed dead skin. Once dried, the mud acts like a natural suit of armor. This is also the time when social interactions are most frequent. Young males lock horns, not just for practice, but to test their rank. The sharp crack of horns echoes alongside the splashing of murky water stirred by hundreds of hooves. But the waterhole is far from safe. This life-sustaining resource always brings competition. Sometimes Cape buffalo face off with rhinos. Both are massive, powerful, and armed with formidable horns. These standoffs can go either way, depending on the size and temperament of each animal. The greater threat, however, comes from elephants. When a herd of elephants arrives, Cape buffalo almost always retreat. They're simply not in the same weight class as the largest land mammals on Earth. And while African elephants are known for their gentle nature, they can become highly territorial, especially near a waterhole. They don't just come for water, they come for survival. A space to cool down, care for their bodies, and maintain the bonds that hold the herd together. An adult elephant can drink between 150 and 300 liters of water a day, using its trunk, the only tool it has, to draw each gulp and spray it into its mouth. When the sun climbs high and the heat pushes past 40 degrees Celsius, water becomes an irreplaceable lifeline. Waterholes are more than places to drink. They're natural spas, playgrounds, and social hubs. Elephants bathe in water and mud, letting the cool soak ease the heat and the drying mud form a protective layer against insects, parasites, and UV rays. Young calves play, adults spray each other with water, and younger males test their strength in harmless sparring matches. Every moment at the waterhole reinforces the invisible bonds between individuals, ties that keep the herd united through the trials of the dry season. As surface water dwindles, elephants dig deeper, using their tusks and front feet to break into the dry mud or sand in search of hidden groundwater. In doing so, they not only save themselves, but often uncover water for other species as well. This behavior has earned elephants the title of ecosystem engineers of the savanna. They are widely distributed across Africa, with an estimated continental population of around 415,000 individuals. About 352,000 African bush elephants and 140,000 African forest elephants. Botswana currently holds close to 130,000 elephants, Zimbabwe around 100,000, Tanzania 60,000, Kenya 35,500, and South Africa 24,000. Yet from 1964 to 2016, savanna elephant populations declined by up to 70%, and forest elephants by as much as 90%, primarily due to habitat loss and poaching. This decline is a stark reminder that even the largest land animals are not immune to the pressures of human impact and climate change. Their migrations are tightly linked to water. During the rainy season, elephants roam far in search of fresh forage, but as the dry season tightens its grip, they return to the most reliable waterholes. In northern Botswana, some herds travel as far as 325 kilometers to reach the Chobe River when other sources dry up. In regions like Namibia or Tanzania, their daily travel distances increase sharply toward the end of the dry season, each journey becoming a race against exhaustion and heat. At the waterhole, elephants reign supreme. Their dominance can be forceful, even aggressive, but it is also how they secure resources for the herd. Amid the scorched plains of Africa, where the ground cracks like the skin of some ancient reptile, water is more precious than gold. Out of the brush steps a fully grown African bush elephant bull, making his way to the waterhole. But as it came closer, a black rhino with a proud pair of horns stood tall at the water's edge. It didn't drink and it didn't leave. It just stood there, head lowered, muscles pulled tight like a drawn bow. The elephant stops. It exhales sharply, raises its head, and flings a cloud of dust with its trunk. A warning. But the rhino doesn't move. The elephant lowers its trunk, turns away, and disappears into the thicket. The rhino thinks it's over. Then, from the sparse woodland, a crack of breaking branches echoes like a war drum. More bull elephants appear, brimming with tension. They move forward like three silent walls, calm but charged with force. The rhino hesitates, one step back, then another. It turns and walks away, understanding the limits. As the sun climbs higher and temperatures quickly rise past 30 degrees Celsius, the savanna shifts into a harsher rhythm of life. The air turns dry and biting. Sunlight bleaches the ground white, and the waterhole loses the calm it held in the early morning. Its muddy bottom is stirred by dozens of herds, zebras, wildebeests, buffaloes, arriving one after another, turning the surface into a murky mix, heavy with the scent of earth and the quick, heated breath of hundreds of thirsty creatures pressed together. Beneath that cloudy water, peace is only a thin illusion. In long-established waterholes, especially in regions like the Okavango or southern Botswana, the presence of Nile crocodiles is a regular reality. Fully grown individuals, over 4 meters long, lie perfectly still near the edges, with only their eyes and nostrils breaking the surface, watching without being seen. They don't need to move much. Just one upward snap, timed as an antelope lowers its head, is enough to pull the prey beneath the surface. As the dry season stretches on across the savanna, the earth cracks beneath the burning sun, and herds of hippopotamus begin making their way toward the last remaining waterholes. These are more than just places to quench their thirst. They are sanctuaries, lifelines in a world running desperately low on water. At the peak of midday, when air temperatures can rise above 40 degrees Celsius, hippos fully submerge themselves in the warm water, keeping their body temperature steady around 36 degrees Celsius. With their massive size, thick skin, and a near-complete lack of sweat glands, water becomes their only shield against overheating and dehydration. Each adult hippo can weigh over 1,500 kilograms, but they are far from sluggish in the water. Though they can't swim like fish, they move efficiently by walking along the bottom, using their strong legs to push themselves forward through the mud, gliding like a hefty but agile submarine. This method allows them to stay submerged for hours at a time, surfacing only briefly for air before dipping back down. Their water-dependent lifestyle makes the waterhole the focal point of nearly all activity during the dry season. But as the surface area shrinks, the space between individuals begins to close and tension rises. Dominant males, naturally territorial, start asserting control with powerful shoves, underwater collisions, or full-blown clashes. In such tight quarters, even the act of opening a mouth wide can signal a challenge, and a deep bellow rumbling from the throat can carry a warning across the waterhole. This sound, whether a grunt or a bellow, resonates over the surface, slicing through the heavy air and reaching hundreds of meters, a reminder that order in the hippo world does not shift easily. Among individuals, territorial marking plays a crucial role. Hippos have a unique way of doing this, with feces. They often stand near the water's edge and vigorously wag their tails while defecating, spraying dung in every direction. It's not just instinct, it's a communication system, signaling ownership of space and even reproductive status. As environmental pressure intensifies, these signs become more important than ever, helping individuals avoid unnecessary conflict or steer clear of already claimed territory. Such waterholes are often located in vital regions of the African continent, where hippos are widely distributed along rivers, lakes, and floodplains. However, in recent decades, that range has steadily contracted due to habitat loss and growing human pressure. Today, the global hippopotamus population is estimated at around 115,000 to 130,000 individuals, with the highest concentrations in countries like Zambia, Mozambique, Tanzania, Uganda, and South Africa. Zambia currently leads with over 37,000 hippos found along major river systems and forest edge wetlands. Beyond their love for water, hippos actively reshape their ecosystems. As they move through the landscape, they unintentionally carve new channels, guiding water flow and helping retain moisture in the soil. Their waste, though capable of reducing oxygen levels if it accumulates excessively, provides rich nutrients for bottom-dwelling organisms and fish sharing the same waters. But the hippo's story of survival isn't limited to the light of day. When night falls and moonlight shimmers across the still surface, hippos begin to leave the waterhole, venturing inland to graze. They may travel between 5 and 10 kilometers in a single night in search of food, always returning before dawn. This predator is a master of stillness. In the brief moment an antelope lowers its head to drink, all motion becomes meaningless. With a single upward lunge, striking at speeds up to 12 meters per second, the prey is dragged below the surface before it has a chance to cry out. The Nile crocodile does not hunt with urgency. Rather than chase, it conserves energy through patience and concealment. With bodies that can stretch over 5 meters in length and weigh more than 700 kilograms, they have the strength to pull down a full-grown zebra in an instant. Yet that massive frame doesn't compromise their stealth. Their earth-toned, scaled skin and streamlined body shape allow them to blend seamlessly into the muddy floor, where light can't reach, and sound is muffled by the chaos of a dry land ecosystem. As cold-blooded animals, Nile crocodiles cannot regulate their body temperature internally like mammals. They rely entirely on the surrounding environment. When water temperatures sit between 30 and 33 degrees Celsius, they remain motionless, conserving heat and minimizing energy loss. But when temperatures rise above 34 degrees Celsius, something increasingly common due to climate change, they haul themselves onto the bank and open their mouths wide in a behavior known as gaping. Not to threaten, but to cool down. Moisture evaporating from the open mouth helps release heat without the need for sweat. It's like an old car popping the hood to cool off after a long drive. The adaptability of the Nile crocodile is the product of millions of years of evolution. Its closest ancestors lived in North Africa during the Eocene epoch, over 50 million years ago. Recent genetic studies show that today's Nile crocodile is not a single uniform population, but a blend of at least 2 distinct genetic lineages, one dominant in eastern and southern Africa, the other now recognized as a separate species, common in western and central regions. This discovery challenges earlier views on their evolutionary history and expands their ecological range farther than previously thought. Their habitat stretches across nearly the entire sub-Saharan region, from Egypt to South Africa, from Ethiopia to Namibia. One striking rediscovery in 2025 documented their return to Guinea-Bissau, where the species had gone unrecorded for over 200 years. Their diet reflects their progression through life stages. Young crocodiles, under 1.5 meters long, mainly feed on insects like water beetles, grasshoppers, and dragonflies. Too small to take down larger prey, they must compete fiercely for tiny meals in the shallows. As they grow, reaching about 2 meters, they shift to fish, crabs, and amphibians. At Lake Turkana, fish accounted for nearly 90% of the diet in juvenile crocodiles analyzed. Once fully mature, they begin hunting primates, antelope, even young buffalo, prey that can weigh over 100 kilograms. The diet evolves with jaw size and strength, but the strategy stays the same: wait and strike with precision. A crocodile lies completely still, only its eyes and nostrils breaking the surface. No one sees it move. No one knows how long it's been there. But in the larger water holes, hippos enter as if they own the place. They don't swim. They glide across the muddy bottom, their massive bodies sending gentle ripples across the surface. There is no friendship between these two, but there is no war either, at least not when each knows its place. The hippo is too large to be prey. The crocodile, too dangerous to dismiss. They coexist like difficult neighbors sharing a waterline, avoiding direct conflict unless pushed to the edge. But sometimes, that fragile balance shatters. When the waterhole shrinks too much during the dry season, when every square meter of water becomes as precious as gold, conflict is inevitable. The hippo charges like a living tank, its jaws wide open, tusks over half a meter long aimed straight at the crocodile. The strike misses, but it's enough. The crocodile retreats beneath the surface, leaving behind a swirl of mud like a warning sign. As the dry season comes to a close, the sky over the savanna begins to shift in color. Clusters of early season clouds gather, heavy yet filled with promise. The first rains fall in light, scattered drops, then gradually grow heavier and steadier, soaking the cracked earth with a fresh, life-giving layer of water. This is when the waterholes begin to transform. Once shrunken pools of mud, they slowly refill, then overflow, pushing their boundaries wider with each passing day. No longer confined by the limits of the dry season, the waterholes expand, some doubling or even quintupling in size, even merging with one another to form seamless wetlands that stretch across the lowland plains. The water is not only more abundant, but also cleaner. Heavy rains dilute the muddy bottoms, flushing out months of accumulated sediment while increasing the dissolved oxygen content, markedly improving water quality. Temperatures within the water stabilize, creating ideal conditions for continuous biological activity, especially for microorganisms and bottom-dwelling species. Around the waterholes, the landscape changes at a remarkable pace. In just 2 to 3 weeks of steady rain, fresh grasses blanket the ground, reaching average heights of 60 to 100 centimeters. These new shoots are soft, tender, and rich in nutrients, an ideal food source for large herbivores like zebras, wildebeests, and buffalo. Low shrubs and woody plants begin to bloom in sync, attracting millions of insects, especially dragonflies, mosquitoes, and beetles, forming a complete food chain from the ground up. It's not just the resident wildlife that responds. Migratory birds begin arriving from Europe, Central Asia, and the Middle East. The newly formed shallow waters quickly become feeding grounds and breeding sites for wading birds. These species take full advantage of the insect-rich, low-competition environment to raise their young and regain strength after journeys spanning thousands of kilometers. After the African jacana steps gracefully across the water's surface, the scene unfolds into streaks of fresh rainwater spreading across the savanna. In the stillness of the waterhole, a grey heron appears, motionless like a statue in the shallow water. Standing nearly 1 meter tall with a wingspan that can stretch up to 175 centimeters, the grey heron is an unmistakable silhouette. Yet when it remains completely still, blending into the ashen sky and low shrubs, it nearly vanishes from the view of its prey. Its silvery grey plumage, paired with a white head and a long black stripe extending from the eye to the nape, makes it a true master of disguise. In the damp, slow-moving rhythm of the rainy season, when everything softens and shifts more gently, the grey heron's patient and silent hunting style becomes all the more effective. It does not chase its prey. Instead, the heron uses an ambush strategy. It stands completely still, often on just one leg, for many minutes, sometimes even longer, keeping the water's surface undisturbed. Beneath the murky layer, fish, tadpoles, frogs, and insects go about unaware that the long shadow above is waiting for the slightest movement. When the moment comes, the grey heron strikes with astonishing speed. Its sharp, spear-like beak darts down in a split second, precise and decisive. The prey is caught in a firm grip or pierced through, then swallowed whole on the spot. Within the ever-moving ecosystem of the waterhole, the grey heron is not particularly picky about its meals. Fish remain the top choice, but if shrimp, crabs, small crustaceans, or even a field mouse or stray chick wanders too close to the water's edge, they won't be passed up. This flexible diet allows the grey heron to adapt well to temporary wetlands, where food sources change rapidly with water levels and shifting animal populations. The waterhole also serves as a social hub for the grey heron. As the breeding season approaches, they gather in large groups called heronries, often nesting in tall trees near the water or in low shrubs that stay above flood levels. A typical nest holds between 3 and 5 pale blue eggs. Once hatched, the chicks stay in the nest for 7 to 8 weeks until they're strong enough to spread their wings and fly. The rainy season provides the best chance of ensuring a steady supply of food for the growing young. The range of the grey heron stretches from Europe to Asia and as far south as regions of Africa. In Africa, they're seen year-round in major wetlands like the Okavango Delta in Botswana, Rietvlei Wetland Reserve and Table Bay Nature Reserve in South Africa. Some are permanent residents, while others migrate from temperate zones to the south as conditions grow harsher. These migratory individuals may travel as far as 2,000 kilometers in search of safe wintering grounds with stable water levels and abundant food. Moving away from the graceful dances of the grey-crowned crane, the waterhole welcomes another striking presence, the saddle-billed stork, quietly stepping into the shallows, its vivid red bill edged with yellow gleaming in the light. Unlike ambush predators like the heron, the saddle-billed stork hunts with a more deliberate and active approach. It often forages alone or in pairs, slowly wading through shallow stretches with a calm, focused demeanor. Its unhurried stride and scanning gaze glide across the water's surface, but it's the large bill, nearly 30 centimeters long, that is the true hunting tool. Rather than striking randomly, the bird continuously dips its bill into the water, as if scanning for the slightest ripple beneath the mud. This feeding style resembles the use of an underwater metal detector, sensation, reaction, and calculation, all working in harmony. The moment the bill tip senses even the faintest twitch, be it a soft flick from a catfish or a crab's sideways shuffle, the snap is immediate, powerful, precise, and final. Most of its prey are medium to large-sized fish, with species like catfish and tilapia dominating the menu. When it catches a fish nearly half its body length, the stork will often bring it to shore, rotating the fish with its bill to swallow it head first, avoiding injury from sharp fins. This skill in handling larger prey makes the saddle-billed stork one of the most efficient fish hunters in freshwater ecosystems across sub-Saharan Africa. Standing up to 1.5 meters tall with a wingspan reaching nearly 2.4 meters, the saddle-billed stork is among the largest birds in Africa. Males are typically heavier, averaging 6.4 kilograms compared to the female's 5.9 kilograms. One easy way to tell the sexes apart in the wild is by eye color. Males have brown eyes, while females display a striking yellow. Their preferred habitats are broad, shallow wetlands, marshes, flooded grassland lakes, and seasonal river channels, places where water rises slowly and life flourishes after months of drought. In areas where feeding territories are stable, the saddle-billed stork shows strong territorial behavior. Once a pair establishes control over a waterhole, intruding storks are often driven off with displays involving wing spreading or bill gestures to protect the food supply. This helps keep population density balanced, but it also means that losing a territory can severely limit survival chances in the following dry season. As for breeding, saddle-billed storks are monogamous. Pairs form long-lasting bonds, often for life. They build large nests in the canopies of tall trees, reusing and reinforcing them year after year. After hatching, The chicks remain in the nest for about 10 to 14 weeks as they develop their flight feathers, yet they continue to depend on their parents throughout the rainy season. This extended development time, along with a slow breeding cycle, keeps population density naturally low, making the species more vulnerable to environmental changes. Despite their impressive size and remarkable adaptations, saddle-billed storks are not immune to the pressures of human activity. The loss of wetland habitats, groundwater extraction, riverside deforestation, and agricultural runoff have shrunk their range, especially in drier regions like Namibia, Zimbabwe, and northern South Africa. Scientists have raised concerns that without coordinated conservation efforts at both regional and cross-border levels, the population may continue to decline rapidly within the next 10 years. Though they share shades of grey in both feathers and name, the grey-crowned crane embodies an entirely different way of life. As the lowlands begin to hold water after the first rains of the season, these cranes descend with wings outstretched, bringing with them the regal presence of a species long regarded as a symbol of elegance in the wild. Unlike silent hunters such as the grey heron, this crane is rarely still. It moves constantly along the water's edge, each step graceful yet purposeful. With every firm stomp on the damp ground, the mud beneath quivers. Insects, frogs, and other small creatures hidden below the surface startle and rise. That's when the crane's quick beak strikes, swift and sure, leaving little chance for escape. This method of foraging by foot stomping is a signature behavior, showcasing the bird's intelligence in actively engaging with its surroundings instead of simply waiting. Their diet knows few boundaries. From grasshoppers and crickets to seeds, young grasses, lizards, worms, and occasionally even bird eggs, almost anything can become nourishment. In the heart of the flooded plains, with midday sun glinting off the water and fresh grass beginning to sprout along the shore, the grey-crowned crane is not just here to hunt, it's here to connect, to belong. Individuals are usually seen in pairs or small family groups. They gather around shallow pools, sipping clear water, preening under the sun, and at times releasing their iconic calls, resonant, trumpet-like sounds that echo across the savanna. In the stillness of the landscape, those calls stretch far and wide, creating a kind of primal music only truly understood by those who have heard it in person. No breeding season is needed for the grey-crowned crane to perform its courtship dance. This ritual is an essential part of their social behavior. When two cranes face each other, their legs begin to bounce gently, then suddenly they leap into the air, wings spread wide like classical ballet dancers. They spin, bow, sway, flap, and call out, sometimes even tossing twigs or blades of grass as props in this expressive, emotional display. Researchers believe these dances are more than mating rituals. They reinforce the bond between lifelong partners, especially in this species known for monogamous pairings that can last a lifetime. Though not long-distance migrants, grey-crowned cranes still move with the seasons, following water sources and the promise of fresh vegetation and abundant food. They are widely distributed across eastern and southern Africa, from Uganda, Rwanda, Kenya, and Tanzania to South Africa. Typically inhabiting wetlands, seasonally flooded savannas, lowland basins, and cultivated fields near rivers and lakes. This bird is the national symbol of Uganda, appearing at the center of its flag in a proud stance, representing grace, composure, and national pride. The grey-crowned crane also holds powerful cultural significance in the Great Lakes region, often featured in festivals, folk dances, and traditional ornamentation. In the wild, grey-crowned cranes live an average of 20 to 25 years, and in care, they can reach up to 35 or even 40 years. Yet their status as cultural icons comes not from their longevity, but from their refined demeanor, intricate social habits, and the unique ability to express emotion through movement. In the soft light of late afternoon, when a pair of cranes face each other, dancing against the wind and spreading their wings over shimmering water, it's easy to forget that this world is still full of uncertainty. This is the time when a bird known by its nickname Jesus bird, the African jacana, begins its remarkable journey. They don't rush in flight. They arrive gently, almost silently, leaving behind slender, delicate footprints like brushstrokes across the floating lily pads. The African jacana's ability to walk on floating vegetation is one of nature's most astonishing feats. They have exceptionally long toes and slender claws that distribute their body weight over a much larger surface area than their small size would suggest. Thanks to this adaptation, they can move swiftly across fragile leaves, appearing to glide over the water's surface. The rainy season's waterhole environment is an ideal setting for this bird. The waters spread wide and remain shallow, filled with a dense tangle of floating plants that form a living maze. The African jacana weaves through gaps in the leaves, using its long beak to gently probe the undersides in search of insects, larvae, spiders, and even the tiniest of invertebrates in hiding. Each cluster of leaves is a world of its own, and the jacana is a patient, graceful predator. Unlike most bird species, the African jacana follows a completely reversed breeding system. The female is the larger, more vibrant individual, and she is the one who holds dominance over the territory. She maintains a broad area within which several males reside, much like a harem. After mating, the female lays her eggs in a nest built by a male, then quickly moves on to repeat the cycle with other partners. The heaviest responsibility falls on the males. The jacana's nest is little more than a flimsy cluster of floating plants, yet the male diligently incubates each egg, balancing day and night on the ever-shifting surface of the water. When the chicks hatch, they can already walk on their own, but the father's job is far from over. He protects and guides his young, even hiding them beneath his wings when threats approach, a unique skill known as wing brooding. Meanwhile, the female is already at another corner of the waterhole, preparing for the next round of nesting. The jacana's polyandrous strategy is also seen as an evolutionary way to optimize resources. Instead of investing fully in a single brood, the female spreads survival risk across multiple nests, and the male, despite taking on the role of caregiver, is the crucial figure in preserving the species' genetic legacy, ensuring the eggs hatch and the young have a strong chance of thriving. As seasonal rains fill the natural depressions across the land, a waterhole becomes more than just a new patch of water on the savanna. It transforms into the engine that restarts the entire ecosystem. From nutrient-rich silt drawing aquatic life back, to green grasslands pulling in migrating herds, and even the arrival of predators trailing their prey, every link in the chain circles back to this vital source. During the rainy season, each waterhole becomes a biological crossroads, where life radiates outward. In the dry season, its role becomes even more critical. Every day, the largest residents of the savanna require hundreds of liters of water just to regulate their body temperature and stay alive. Herds travel dozens of kilometers in search of a safe water source. Even species that can go longer without drinking rarely stray more than 2 days from water. In the dry season, when average rainfall drops below 50 millimeters per month, waterholes become essential gathering points, places every creature must return to, whether they want to or not. However, human intervention in water availability hasn't always delivered the expected results. Since the mid-1990s, some conservation areas began shutting down artificial waterholes. By the early 2000s, over 65% of man-made waterholes had been decommissioned. Studies showed that an overly even distribution of water sources disrupted natural movement patterns, placing pressure on vegetation in regions that once served as recovery zones for the ecosystem. Limiting artificial water supply is not about cutting off life, it's a strategy to restore balance. When animals have to travel farther to find water, the interval between breeding cycles in certain large species increased from roughly 3 years to between 4.2 and 4.5 years, easing strain on both population numbers and habitat. This is a new approach. Instead of controlling nature, humans are learning to move in step with it. Yet the role of a waterhole goes beyond simply sustaining wildlife. Research shows that land surrounding a waterhole contains nitrogen and phosphorus levels 3 to 5 times higher than in dry soil. Thousands of animals drink, defecate and urinate here, turning the area into a fertile strip of land. Grasses like red oat grass, buffalo grass, and many native species thrive, creating a sustainable food source for herbivores. This cycle continues, tightly woven, quietly precise, all without needing a human hand. Now, let's return to the story of the shadow army, the spotted hyena. What percentage of this apex predator has humanity truly uncovered and decoded? Why the hyena system wins. The science behind the empire. Before that story is explained, have you ever thought about a species one way, then changed completely after understanding more? Tell us about it in the comments. The hyena is the best test for that. Nala wins. But the real question is not who wins. The question is, why is her system biologically stronger than Kago's? Kago is no less intelligent. Kago's system is not bad. It is simply more fragile. And to understand why, we must understand what the hyena carries in its body, in its social structure, in its nervous system, things that cannot be seen while watching a hunt. This is the part most stories about the hyena skip. Because drama is more compelling than biology. Because the confrontation is easier to grasp than evolution. But drama is the symptom. Biology is the cause. The question raised is not who wins. The real question is why a species operating on the principle of system outperforms species operating on the principle of the individual. In the same environment? And the answer lies in architecture. The hyena is not stronger than the lion. They are smarter at the level of the system. And in nature, as in human organization, systemic superiority always defeats individual strength, given enough time. Napoleon could defeat any general in a specific battle, but he could not defeat a logistics system that never grew tired. That is the lesson of history, and it is rewritten every day on the savanna. The following will prove why what happened had to happen. Not because Nala is special, but because the hyena was built through 10 million years of selection to be this species with this ability in this environment. Science is the evidence, and the evidence is irrefutable. But there is one thing science cannot fully explain. Why is this species still so seriously misunderstood? The answer lies in the psychology of the observer. We see the savanna through the lens of the stories we have been told, and that story has a clear protagonist: the lion, the crown, strength. That story is beautiful. It is also not entirely true. But a beautiful story outlives the evidence, because a beautiful story need not be proven, only repeated. The following is not about replacing the old story with a new one. It is about evidence that no story can slip past. Once you understand the architecture, you cannot fail to see it. And then, the old story of the scavenger becomes not only wrong, it becomes incomprehensible. How could anyone look at such a system and see only an opportunist? The hyena was not always a hunter. This species' ancestors, according to fossil evidence, were professional scavengers. They lived on what other species left behind. That is a valid ecological strategy, and many species have survived successfully with it for millions of years. But when Africa's climate changed, when carcasses were no longer enough to feed a large clan, when competition with other scavengers grew too intense, the hyena did what only species with enough biological flexibility could do. They learned to hunt, not in 1 generation, not in 100 generations, across millions of years, step by step, small adaptation by small adaptation, accumulating into an entirely new hunting machine. Jaws optimized to hunt. Legs optimized for endurance, not peak speed, but the ability to sustain an average pace over long distances. A social system optimized for coordinated group hunting. A brain optimized for strategic awareness. The result of those 10 million years, 95%. That figure places the hyena alongside the lion and ahead of most other carnivores, in the proportion of food caught for themselves. But why does the story of the beggar still survive? Because the hyena is also the savanna's finest food thief. That complements the 95%. The remaining 5% comes from seizing other species' meals. And because that behavior happens by day, in the light, before the eyes of observers, it becomes the story that gets retold. While the other 95% happens in darkness, out of sight, unrecorded. That is why this is not a story about Nala stealing the wild dog's food. It is the story of a species that learned to gather information from every interaction, even the interactions outsiders look at and call theft. Nala needs to know what the wild dog's stopping point is. That is the difference. And that 95% is not a smooth statistic. It means that each time the hyena is called a scavenger, the reality is the opposite. They are hunting. Not waiting, not eating scraps. They are spending energy, running, planning, and executing in a way whose success rate exceeds that of any species. The hyena does not need us to reassess them. They are fine. It is we who need to correct our perception. There is something about the way a hyena eats that no one imagines until they witness it. Not the speed, not the quantity. It is the sound of a digestive system working at full capacity. The hyena's bite force is 4,500 newtons. That figure is 40% higher than the lion's and double that of most other carnivores of similar size. This bite force is enough to crush a femur, the thickest, hardest bone, not gnawing, crushing, into powder. But bite force is only the first part of the system. The second part is the stomach. The pH of the hyena's stomach is below 2, close to the acidity of carboxylic acid. At that pH, most of the deadliest pathogens are destroyed entirely. That allows the hyena to consume remains that would cause any other species to perish from toxicity. Keratin. The substance that forms hooves, horns, and tough skin is indigestible for most carnivores. The hyena assimilates it completely. That means from a single zebra, this species obtains 100% of the edible mass. No part is left behind except fur and some coarse hair. 25 minutes, one zebra, no trace remaining. Why Nala does not need to guard the acquisition site as long as a male lion? Why temporal pressure does not affect the hyena in the manner it influences the lion? When you possess the ability to consume everything and do so rapidly, you do not need to safeguard sustenance for an extended duration. You merely require sufficient time to complete the meal. And that is something the hyena always has. But more important is when that power is used. The hyena does not chew continuously. They maximize the nutrition from each part of the prey in the shortest time. That is not greed. That is efficiency encoded into the physical form. And that efficiency means the hyena pack departs from the acquisition site earlier than other species, leaving behind a pristine environment free from pathogens accumulating from decaying remains. That is not a side benefit. It is the natural sanitation function of a species that fully consumes what it eats. The savanna has no biological waste because the hyena has consumed it. The hyena does not fill a gap that humans created. They fill a gap the savanna has always needed, and no other species can fill it the way they do. When Tao returned and broke Kago's system from within, what he broke was a hierarchy based on the male. Power comes from the adult male, is sustained by the physical strength of the adult male, and is lost when that adult male leaves. That is a fragile system because it depends on an external variable, the presence and will of a single individual. The hyena evolved in an entirely different direction. Their hierarchy is the strictest matriarchy among mammals. Not a tendency toward matriarchy, always a female, with no exception. The male, though similar in size to the female, always ranks below every adult female in the same clan. That means the strongest male in the clan must still yield the feeding spot to the lowest ranking female, and no male can change that. Rank comes from the mother. This is the most important point in the entire system. The offspring of the highest ranking female, from the moment of birth, rank just below their mother. No need to fight to prove it. No need to wait until adulthood. They are born at the finish line of the clan. Why does that create stability? Because it removes unnecessary competition. In the lion system, every time a male grows large enough, he becomes a potential threat, and that threat must be resolved by violence or expulsion. The energy spent on those confrontations is energy not spent on hunting, defending territory, or raising the young. In the hyena system, that energy is not wasted. The proportion of young that do not survive their first year, due to pressure from the internal hierarchy of the clan, is higher than any other cause, including lack of food or attack from outside enemies. That may seem cruel. But from the biological viewpoint, it serves a function, sustaining a stable hierarchy, ensuring resources are not spread too thin, and keeping the clan at an optimal size for each ecological condition. Nala's system regulates itself from within by rules programmed into every social interaction of the clan. That is the difference between an organization dependent on leadership and one that operates well even without a leader. And when the pressure is great enough, like the dry season, like when Sadie was badly injured, the system that recovers faster will win. That creates an intriguing paradox in scientific observation. The hyena's hierarchy is based on the matriline, but not because females dominate males in the simple sense, rather because knowledge passes from mother to offspring, and that knowledge is the clan's most important asset. An experienced matriarch knows things, where water lies in an extreme dry season, which boundaries have shifted, which rivals are dangerous, and which rivals can be pushed back. That information lives in the matriarch's behavior and is passed on by observation, by watching her decisions, by living long enough beside the one who knows. Sadie inherits not only Nala's territory, she inherits the living memory of the clan, and that is something that cannot be transferred. There is a kind of information no lion pride on this savanna possesses, not because they are less intelligent, because they lack the tools to gather it. The hyena has the richest vocal communication repertoire, more than 12 distinct sounds, each carrying specific information: location, emotional state, social rank, the size of the clan being summoned. The distinctive whoop, the species' farthest reaching call, can be heard from a distance of 5 kilometers in favorable conditions. On a quiet night on the savanna, a hyena hearing a whoop can know at once who it is, where they are, and how many members are responding. But the most important ability is not communication within the clan. It is the ability to read the enemy's calls. This is one of the most astonishing discoveries about animal cognition, and it came from a simple experiment. When researchers played back the roars of lion prides of different sizes for hyenas to hear, the hyenas not only distinguished a large pride from a small one, they adjusted their response in proportion. Hearing a pride larger than their own, they retreated. Smaller, they advanced. They are counting and making tactical decisions based on that count. This is what Nala did when she heard about Kago's pride. And this is what Nala does to confirm Tao has gone. No need to see, only to hear and to process the information correctly. In Nala's intelligence system, sound is the first layer of information. The vulture is the second layer. The reactions of smaller species, black-backed jackal, bat-eared fox, are the third layer, all at once, continuous, never stopping. No lion pride operates such a multi-layered intelligence system, and that is why, when Nala decides, her decision is rarely wrong, not because she is lucky, but because she has more information than anyone else in the game. When a clan member detects a lion, the call does not only say danger. Those variables are conveyed in a single sound, and the members who receive that sound can decide to act at once, without needing to see the threat. No empire survives without the ability to recover from loss, and no recovery is solid without resistance to the invisible. The hyena is immune to anthrax, rabies, canine distemper, the virus that has wiped out many wild dog populations, and other carnivores. This is an immune system optimized through millions of years of exposure to pathogens. The hyena eats carcasses dead for many days, teeming with bacteria and viruses. And not only survives, they use them as a supplementary food source during seasons of scarcity. More intriguing still, the hyena's immune system is linked to rank. Higher-ranking females produce more antibodies for the same pathogen. That means social rank affects who survives a disease. The hyena's hierarchy preserves the most valuable individuals in the clan. But that strength does not mean immortality. Half of all hyena cubs do not survive their first year, not because the immune system is weak, because other pressures, competition within the clan, lack of food, risk from outside, act during the stage when the immune system is not yet fully developed. Recent research shows that the hyena carries certain antibiotic-resistant bacteria without falling ill, and that their immune system can contain those bacteria without letting them spread to other organs. An immune system optimized for conditions in which most other species could not survive. The empire is not only strong when conditions are favorable, it is strongest when conditions are harshest, because that is when everything else collapses, and the hyena still stands. That is also why the hyena is often the last species affected when a new disease appears in wildlife populations. There are scientists who study a species, and there are scientists who devote their entire lives to understanding one species. Dr. K. Holekamp belongs to the second kind. More than 40 years at the Masai Mara, Kenya, more than 200 scientific papers, and a single question guiding them all: what is the hyena truly? Dr. Holekamp did not find a villain in those 40 years. She found individuals, each with its own personality, its own way of processing information, its own strategies to survive in an extremely complex system. One of Holekamp's findings is not in the ordinary biology textbook. The hyena learns. Not in the metaphorical sense, It absorbs information from the environment, stores it, and adjusts behavior based on what it has learned. This species' rate of learning rivals that of primates. That explains why the hyena does not merely adapt to a fixed environment, it adapts to changing environments. Not instinct guiding the way, experience guiding the way. And experience comes only from being curious enough to approach the unknown and intelligent enough to draw the lesson before it becomes an unfixable mistake. Dr. Holekamp says it in a larger context. In 40 years, she has watched thousands of interactions. And what she realized is that the behavior of each individual cannot be predicted from knowing only its species. You need to know the individual, its history, its rank, its network of relationships, its experience. Nala is Nala, not because she is a hyena, but because she is Nala, with everything she has been through and gathered in her life. And Dr. Holekamp's 40 years of research have given us the tools to understand that. What Holekamp emphasizes in every lecture and every paper, we cannot protect what we do not understand, and we cannot understand what we will not observe long enough. 40 years is long enough. What she found was not a lesser species surviving on luck. She found one of the most complex social systems in nature, operating at a scale no other non-primate species achieves. We have just walked together through the rawest cross-sections of the war of systems and the harsh economics of survival on the savanna. Which animal in today's episode changed the way you see the wild? Was it the patient, distributed intelligence network of the hyena or the harsh structural burdens of the lion? Leave your experience in the comments. Your understanding is a tribute to these wild animals. Do not forget to like and subscribe to join me on the field expeditions to come, where we will continue to decode the most mysterious survival codes of all. And if you want to explore more of other wild animals, continue watching Win or Die, full episode, Deadliest Battles for Survival or Lion Attack, the Mapogo Battle for Survival.